Uh, no. Just no. The answer to that question is no. But since you clicked on the clickbait, we're gonna explain why and why I decided to have like this be my first clickbaity video, first video in general, if we're being honest. So, back in the days when we had school, like long time ago, I was in a math class because we had to do a math class, and I had like this friend, and whenever I mentioned anything with Disney, no matter what it would be like, you know, I wish they would stop making live action movies of movies that don't need to be remade. Maybe we should have like an Atlantis movie, blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking about things. He would like get right up in my face and go, "Did you know that Walt Disney was a communist?" And I'm like, okay. Anyways, the live action Aladdin sucked. That would be the conversation. Like, he would just interject it, and my apathy levels were through the roof because it was like senior year and I just don't care anymore, and so I never corrected him or asked how he got there because I still don't know. And so this video is for all the people that somehow think Walt Disney was a communist. I don't know. I have no clue. So, brief history. Walt Disney lived from 1901 to 1966. Makes Star Wars joke here. So, he lived through pretty much everything important in American history, for being honest, like all the stuff that they teach you for the AP test, that he lived through it, and so I think it's very fascinating. So, in that time era, from the 1930s, well, from 1929 onward, pretty much, there was this thing called the Great Depression. Yeah, I hope you know what that is. If you don't, I'm sorry, the school system has failed you. Don't worry, you're not the only one. So, within the Great Depression, no one could afford food for a lot of reasons, and it wasn't just in America, it was throughout the entire world. Everything sucked. And so this concept of equality among men, separating out all the money and all of everything equally amongst the population, started sounding like a pretty good idea to some people. This is not the first time this happened. There was actually a Red Scare near the turn of the century, not just in the Great Depression. But we hate communism. And we should. Like, it makes sense. It makes sense for them to be concerned about that, because it did not work out well for the people that did it. But the main point is, communism was un-American. People did not like communism. People were afraid of communism, to a point where we would just be picking up some random Joe Schmo off the street saying, "Hey, you're a communist spy, you're going to prison." And like, we started pointing the finger at communism everywhere, like even things that had nothing to do with communism, like Jews were communists. That's a campaign, that's a thing. I don't understand how we got there, because I thought the stereotype was that Jews had a lot of money, so why the heck would they want to be distributing their wealth evenly amongst the population? That, I don't know. America, explain. So, long story short, communism was pretty much hated, and for good reason, but it went to extremes. But that's the time era that we're living in. That's the time era that Walt Disney pretty much lived in throughout his entire life. He dealt with 2 Red Scares, 2 World Wars, and a good chunk of the Cold War, where this idea of Americanism is a very big thing. It's very important. So the idea that Walt Disney was a communist is kind of ridiculous, just looking at a historical, like just ignoring his personality, ignoring what he did. Just saying anyone was an actual communist at this time is kind of ridiculous because of the social norms. Like witch hunts were happening over communist spies. Okay. we get into Walt Disney's background. So he grew up as a poor person, but he loved America. He forged his own birth certificate so he could go join the Red Cross because they wouldn't let him in the army. So he was part of the Red Cross in World War One, which is kind of cool. He's very much for his country and stuff. Later on, when he made Disneyland, the amount of rides that were about America that were just sandwiched into places that they did not belong to. I don't know about you, but I don't think of different America songs in Tomorrowland. I'm not entirely sure how that works or who thought that was a good idea. But that's a thing. That was a thing. So, yeah, Walt Disney really liked America. And I don't think he would do anything that was deemed un-American or even consider it. So, yeah, I don't think historically he was. Now, what actually happened was kind of worse. So, Walt Disney is linked to communism, but not in the way that my dear old friend in math class assumed he was. Again, I have no idea what Reddit post he read. Can't find it. If you can find the Reddit post, please let me know, because I'm kind of curious. If we're being honest, I'm curious. I want to know. So, yeah, it was worse. He was linked to communism, but he was one of the people tracking down the supposed communist spies and giving those names to the federal government. Yeah, he sent at least 3 of his employees to prison, I believe. I'm not entirely sure how long they stayed there or what exactly they were convicted of specifically, but they were communist spies, and the reason he kind of threw a good chunk of his staff underneath the bus was because they formed a labor union. And he kind of had a right-ish to be mad about this because there were some issues with the labor union being formed. Walt Disney's company was definitely treating its employees a lot better than any other company at the time, and I mean any other company. They had paid time off, they got rewards. There was this huge party that they threw after Snow White finished. It was insane. Think of a bunch of frat boys at a hotel for a weekend. It wasn't just a night, it was a weekend. It was insane. So, all things considered, Walt Disney was a decent boss in the time. I don't think anything that he did would have flowed now, because we have these things called labor unions that he was so terrified of. And so, yeah, basically he threw all the people that tried to form a labor union within his studio underneath the bus. What are you gonna do? And a lot of people got in serious trouble and were deemed communists because of it. So yeah, that's a thing that happened. It's kind of worse than, in my opinion, that's worse than saying Walt Disney was a communist. It's no, no, he sent some people to prison because he thought they were communists. So because I tried to do some research. I attempted, but I know everything, so who needs research? But I did find something that is kind of interesting and might be a link, sort of, to the whole communist theory for Mr. Disney. Walt Disney's dad was a socialist. He actually was a really big part of the movement. He helped Eugene Debs, if you know who that is. Because I don't. I haven't been in school in who knows how long, and I'm forgetting things. But he was kind of important in history. I just can't remember exactly what he did. He was part of the Socialist Party. He was one of the biggest formers of labor unions. I know that much. Labor unions that no one wanted in the 60s and 50s because capitalism. Yeah, that was a thing. So, yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. It's that at some point, Walt Disney knew a person who was definitely socialist, and that was his dad. But considering his actions going forward, and that the Disney company has and always will be a mascot for capitalism. That's the best way I can describe the situation. I don't know. I don't know. No. So, yeah, he's not a communist. I mean, that would be kind of cool if he was, if we're being honest. Like, imagine, it's like, I think it would be funny. Like, biggest communist supporters company becomes mascot for capitalism. Like, that's, I don't know. But obviously, I don't think he was. So, if you find that Reddit post, because he said that he found it on Reddit, he made that very clear. It's like, let me pull up the Reddit post, but, like, he never found it again. If you could find the Reddit post or anything resembling why Walt Disney was communist, could you send it to me? Because I'm curious. I want to know what the deal is. Because just with everything that we've discussed here, I don't think he is one. I don't know why anyone would make that assumption. But let a girl know. So as always, stay safe and see you later.